Hi, welcome back to another video, if I'm recording. Yes, I am recording. Welcome back. Leave a like and subscribe. But today we're playing World of Warship Blitz. Seeing a lot of people play this game. Why not play it for myself? I don't know what being so quiet. So we're going to be playing World of Warships Blitz. Yeah, basically do some boating. Right, I'm going to cut into it fully loads and I'll see you guys then. It's only on 25%. This is going to be a long time. 2 minutes later, I'm 50% of the way there. 2 minutes later, 8% up. This is going to be a 10+ minute wait. I forgot to tell you guys something. I'm going to enable face cam so you can see my face. But hopefully I don't have chocolate on it that I had from like 5 years ago. I've had chocolate on my face for such a long time. But yeah. See my face, but I haven't got. I might plug like one headphone in, like some other content creators do. 73% almost. It's 1 gigabyte. Okay, and this is the Samsung Galaxy A9. It's not made for gaming. It's made for a lot of easy to play, simple games. Okay, this video is literally almost two minutes long. Right now it's 2 minutes long, and all I've been doing is like saying, hey, what's up? I'm waiting for this game to install. Finally, just over 75%. See you guys when it's at 100. It's so close at 97%. 98. I'm gonna wait until it gets 100, but then I'll do another cut. Because it's probably going to take like 5 minutes to install. Now it's installing. See you guys when it's downloaded. I'll have a little play at the game as well before I like do some recording, because you know I gotta get a little used to it. Sorry about that. I gotta get a little used to the game. Okay, get that. Subscribe as well. Woohoo! I'm gonna watch this video. Top 10 most extreme storms. 35 seconds ago. I want 11 likes on my videos. Please, I want 11 likes. Now, please, please, please. Let me turn the volume on.
In history. You might have heard about a few of them, but you're going to find out about others that you'll be glad that you didn't have to experience. As always, I save the best for last, and in this case, I saved the most extreme and chaotic storm for the end. Can you guess which one that is? Let's find out. Number 10. The Tri-State Tornado. Most of the tornadoes you've heard about have formed from thunderstorms. Sometimes they're small and harmless, but sometimes they turn into life-changing events, like the one I'm about to show you. Back in 1925, there was a huge tornado that formed in Missouri. It then moved to the southern part of Illinois, and it finally dissipated in the lower part of Indiana. That's 3 states of America right there. And the tornado traveled across different parts of the country in just 3 hours and a half. Now, having tornadoes is not rare in this part of the country. Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana are very familiar with these. The thing is, average tornadoes travel at about 45 kilometers per hour for an average of 10 kilometers. However, this tri-state tornado traveled at 100 kilometers per hour and covered a distance that was 36 times wider than an average one. Today, as experts try to figure out what exactly went on back in 1925, they are beginning to wonder if this tri-state tornado was in fact a group of tornadoes that were brought together by a storm. One thing is for sure, this thing caused a ton of damage. Around 15,000 homes were destroyed, and more than 2,000 people got injured. Number 9. The Deadliest Tornado. And here's another tornado that came with a storm. This one was not as big as the Tri-State Tornado, but the infrastructure of the location made it vulnerable to all the chaos that went down. In 1989, the Manikganj district of Bangladesh got hit by a tornado. It covered a range of 16 kilometers long and 1.6 kilometers wide. The tornado didn't last long, but since Bangladesh is a densely populated country, the damage was very severe. The tornado destroyed all sorts of structures, including buildings that were within a radius of 6 kilometers. 20 villages with lots of people and livestock were affected by this tragic event. At the end, the death toll was 1,300 people, which made this the deadliest tornado ever. One crazy thing about this event is that a lot of parts in Bangladesh had previously been drought-stricken and the people just wanted to see some rain. The tornado came just a few hours after the president had asked the people to pray for it to rain. Number 8. Hurricane Katrina. How can we forget about this tragedy? Not only did it damage entire communities, but it also affected the local economy for a very long time. It all started in August of 2005 when the storm formed around the Bahamas, and then began its trajectory toward Florida. As the storm began to move back toward the water, it gained enough strength to turn into a powerful Category 5 hurricane, which is pretty much the worst kind of hurricane you can expect. While a Category 3 hurricane is already scary enough, with strong winds of around 200 kilometers per hour, a Category 5 one hits with winds greater than 250 kilometers per hour. That's insane. Katrina was so powerful that the winds could be felt even at a distance of 161 nautical miles from the eye of the hurricane. The severity of the storm caused the levees of New Orleans to break, which caused flooding all over the city and in the surrounding areas. At some point, around 80% of New Orleans was underwater. Overall, Hurricane Katrina affected different parts of the United States, but the most affected one was the state of Louisiana. Since people were not able to go to work, a lot of businesses had to shut down. The impact on the economy was incalculable, but some people think it was a loss of about $200 billion US. As of today, New Orleans is striving and growing, and it's one of the more exciting cities in the US. It's hard to believe they went through all this. Number 7. The blizzard in Iran. While Katrina put New Orleans underwater, a blizzard put Iran under snow. This happened in 1972 after 4 years of drought. At this point, people in Iran were desperate for any form of water. Little did they know that the first pouring of water would come in the form of a blizzard that dumped enough snow to cover entire communities. In some places, the snow was up to 8 meters high, and it trapped around 4,000 villagers while cutting their access to electricity, phone lines, and to the roads that could take them out to a safer place. And if that wasn't enough, in some areas the temperature dropped to as low as 13 degrees Fahrenheit, which caused the pipes to freeze and it blocked the access to water. Also, some snowy isolated parts of the country got infected by the flu, and in some places it was so bad that it reached a 100% infection rate. Some people say that there were 6,000 deaths, others say it was 4,000. Either way, it sounds like it was one of the worst natural disasters ever. One I hope they don't have to experience ever again. Number 6. A storm in Texas. Have you heard the saying, everything is bigger in Texas? Well, it seems like that saying even applies to storms. Back in the 1900s, the town of Galveston, Texas, was hit by a storm which is said to be the deadliest natural disaster to ever hit the U.S. Prior to the storm, the island city of Galveston had 37,000 people and a bright and promising economic future. But all of that changed when the storm came and left them with only 31,000 people and lots of damage that was worth millions of dollars. Since Galveston is an island, there was no natural protection that could keep the place safe from the Category 4 storm that came their way. The damage was so strong that 3/4 of the city were washed away. A year later, there were still remains of the town being brought by the waves surrounding the island. This terrible event made the people rebuild the city in a way that would keep them safe for future catastrophes. Some buildings even put up walls that were 5 meters higher than their original size. And good thing they did, because 61 years later the town was hit by another hurricane, but their improvements helped them stay safe from further damage. Number 5. Hurricane Mitch. The effects of a hurricane are even stronger when they hit a region that's been already struggling with other social issues. Such is the case of Hurricane Mitch in Central America, which came at a time when many of the countries in the region were finally starting to recover from the effects of civil wars while still fighting against poverty and corrupt governments. Mitch originated in the Caribbean, and it made it to the coast of Honduras toward the end of October 1998. At this point, Mitch had already turned into a Category 5 hurricane, with peak winds that were traveling at 290 kilometers per hour. This caused floods, mudslides, and even avalanches that destroyed coastal towns in the region, especially in Honduras. Mitch finally came to an end after striking Florida on November 5th as a tropical storm. However, by this time, the hurricane had already destroyed a ton of homes and changed a lot of lives in parts of Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and of course, Honduras. Honduras was so affected that it had to get a loan of $1.7 billion to restart their economy, even though they were already a struggling country. But when it comes to storms, it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor. If you're on the path of the storm, it's gonna come get you. Number 4. The Great Hurricane of 1780. And here's a hurricane that happened more than 200 years ago, but it was so intense that most of the recent storms can't top the impact it had. The Great Hurricane of 1780 was a hurricane that took the lives of more than 20,000 people in the Caribbean. Most of these deaths occurred in the islands known as the Lesser Antilles, and if we want to be more specific, we can point at the fact that the most affected islands were Martinique, St. Eustatius, and Barbados. However, not all the deaths happened within the islands. The storm was so big that it even took the lives of British and French sailors while they were in their ships. 1780 was a long time ago, so it's hard to get precise data of what exactly went on. But after considering several anecdotes from the time, researchers have reached the conclusion that the Great Hurricane was a Category 5 hurricane with winds that exceeded speeds of 320 kilometers per hour. That's way faster than any other storm I've mentioned thus far. This kind of storm was strong enough to rip the bark away from the strongest trees in the region. I certainly hope we don't get to see this kind of storm in our lifetime. Number 3. Venezuela's heavy rain. Put aside the tornadoes and the strong winds and keep the rain. It sounds less threatening, doesn't it? Well, it does, except for the fact that sometimes excessive rain alone can cause more damage than the strongest of winds, especially when it hits an area that is not prepared to receive all of the rain at once. That's exactly what happened in Vargas, Venezuela back in 1999. A storm poured a year's worth of rain over the Latin American coastal town for 3 days. The rain triggered flooding and some of the worst landslides in history. This led to the destruction of more than 8,000 homes and 700 apartment buildings. On top of that, there were roads, power lines, and water systems that got affected, which cost a ton of money to the government. It is estimated that at least 30,000 people died during this tragedy. Unfortunately, only 1,000 bodies were recovered. The flood swept the debris and perhaps a lot of the missing bodies out to the sea. Now it's time for the day's best pick. We see a peaceful and quiet beach at a short distance from being hit by a very terrible storm. What are the most extreme storms on this list? Let's find out. Number 2. The Bola cyclone. Unfortunately, Bangladesh shows up on this list more than once. You already saw how a tornado affected the lives of many villagers back in the 80s, but now we're going to go a bit further back in time to the year of 1970, right before Bangladesh became independent. During this year, Bangladesh was hit by a storm that many came to know as the Bola cyclone. Even though it was only a Category 3 hurricane, it took the lives of many people. Some estimate there were 300,000 fatalities, but some others go as far as saying up to 1 million lives were lost during the Bola cyclone. Part of the reason Bangladesh is so vulnerable to these events is the fact that the country is barely above sea level. With so many rivers inland, the country is likely to get flooded at the first sign of a storm. It's a beautiful country, that's for sure, but a very vulnerable one when it comes to natural disasters. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works. Number 1. Nina the Super Typhoon. What exactly is a typhoon? Well, it's pretty much the same as a hurricane. They're both cyclones. The only difference is the part of the world where they occur. Hurricane is the name they receive when they happen along the North Atlantic, North Pacific, and Central Pacific regions. But if they happen along the Northwest Pacific, then it's called a typhoon. Now, what's worse than a typhoon? A super typhoon such as Nina, which happened in China back in 1975. Nina brought a year's worth of rain in less than 24 hours over central China. This caused the dams to break, which blasted a huge wave that destroyed an area that was 55 kilometers long and 15 kilometers wide. All the flooding caused around 26,000 deaths, and another 145,000 more died later due to famine and diseases that came as a result of the disaster. And those are all the extreme storms I have for you today. Have you ever been in the middle of a storm? Maybe you experienced one of the storms on this list or something similar. Whatever it is, let us know in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Later, everybody.
Leave a like and subscribe.